This makes me uncomfortable.
All right, welcome to the This Makes Me Uncomfortable podcast, where we discuss all things that make us uncomfortable. I'm your co-host, Allura.
And I'm your other co-host, Jade.
And on today's episode, we are in March Madness mode, as we welcome a very triggering guest, Coach Keli Rosmau, to explain to us sports. Why?
Yes, and Coach Keli is very much like the little man who's in the Shel Silverstein book, the one with the toppling tower of hats, because he plays so many different roles. So he is an athlete of doing too much and none of it very well. So first, he's a musician. He plays lots of instruments that I don't even recognize, just banging around on things, making sounds. He's also a teacher and founder and, straighten your tie, executive director of Kainga Music. He is a shameless whore of a promoter. So Kainga is spelled Kainga if you'd like to search it on social media. He also does not run, so he will reap the rewards without doing any of the work. And he is also a wonderful counselor and mentor and uncle slash father slash cousin slash incestuous role model for many Native Hawaiian and Pacific Islander students. And as you can see from this intro, the theme of this episode with sports in mind is that Keli cannot win. So without further ado, Keli, say hi to our beloved listeners.
Oh my gosh, that is the best intro ever. Thank you so much. It's an honor to be here. Yeah, let's talk about sports.
Yes. Well, before we get to that, we want to do some little, conversation starters. We like to lubricate here on This Makes Me Uncomfortable. Because narcissism is very uncomfortable. We always like to bring it back to us. So what would you like to share about how you met me and Allura and, our origin story, this little triangulation of terror?
Well, I met Jade first, if we go in chronological order. Actually, I believe officially, I remember I was doing a rugby little workshop for some faculty and staff at a college, and that's where I saw Jade's athletic skills on the field.
Oh my God.
You should have followed that, Jade.
Yeah, right.
And then later on, we started working together with the mono program, and so that's how I met Jade, and we have become like co-parents of all these students that we work with, and it's been awesome. That's my origin story with Jade, very briefly. With Allura, I didn't really get to know her that well until COVID times, actually. And so I probably spent the most Zoom time logged in, a lot of hours with,
and it was terrible
with Allura on a lot of stuff working with Mana, and but we got to know each other very well through the many hours we logged in on Zoom. So yeah, that's a very brief.
Okay,
story.
and we just want to be very clear, because I know that we have tons of lawyers in our listening audience, but none of our opinions or anything we discuss or share on this podcast has any relationship to the aforementioned college. So we have severed our ties, baby, in this podcast and are just freewheeling. So whenever Kaylee mentions a college, just ignore it, as we do with most of what Kaylee says. So,
Right.
yeah, so we call you Coach Kaylee because that's a big part of what you do. So if Allura and I were on your rugby team, what would be the advice that you give us to like really help us be our best?
Well, that's I coach. I ask for three things from all of my players. Just give 100%. So just try your best.
Gross.
Respect yourself for showing up. Respect me. I give respect to you too. And all of that. And then the part is staying positive. So it's easy to get frustrated and try and stay positive and get through the frustrations in a positive way. So that's the basis. But for you two specifically, I would suggest, not suggest, I would tell you both, with rugby as a sport, there's a position for every body type and athletic ability.
Oh, come on. Mr. Positivity starts off the show with body shaming.
Oh my God.
No.
There we go with his toxic positivity, starting early.
Everybody's a snowflake. Everybody has a position. You look like a baby giraffe, Jade. You can play over here.
It's true, though. It's true. It's the only sport that can do that. And everyone gets to touch the ball and run with the ball. It's not like in American football where, if you're a bigger person, you don't ever get to touch the ball.
Hey, so. I've touched enough balls in my life. I don't need any more action that way. So you need to rethink your coaching strategies.
So yeah, that's what I would suggest to you too if you were on the rugby team.
So anyway, we're all about making people comfortable and confident, as a coach. But this show is really about getting uncomfortable. So we're going to switch gears a little bit. Allura, has there been anything making you uncomfortable lately, or someone that you've made uncomfortable that you'd like to share?
Always. When Kaylee hugs me a little too long.
Which is always.
Yeah, that's a good one.
What do you think it is that makes you feel uncomfortable during hugs, Allura?
I guess it's the intimacy that I just try to revolt and avoid at any cost.
Mm-hmm.
And Kaylee just pierces through that for some reason, and I allow him. And so that just makes me contemplate life. And it's just an uncomfortable feeling in action.
Okay, so for those who are listening, those two people out there that we've paid to listen, if they encounter one of us or someone else in the world who is equally, what are we, avoiding attachment styles?
Yes, we're actually, what was it? It was like
the fuck you attachment style.
Very much so. It was like the most rarest and the most difficult to get away from.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're truly
to solve. What was it? It was fearful avoidant.
Oh, fearful avoidant. Okay, so if you encounter fearful avoidants like us in the wild, and it is clear that they get stricken with rictus every time you try to touch them, what advice would you give to those loving, healthy people like Kaylee who just want a hug and want to release some endorphins or get a dopamine?
I'd spray them with water.
But what should they do? Like, how would you advise Kaylee to deal with us? With the hug?
Well, I think Kaylee's just immune to us now because he just hugs us anytime. and just goes for it. He's
Mm,
unfearful in that way.
Yeah.
yeah. Would you say this is like a Me Too movement thing?
Oh my god.
Does love like fall under that umbrella?
I think so. I feel very Me Too'd.
Mhm.
Oh my god.
I do think that since we've known Kaylee, I've been getting used to hugging people more.
Mm-hmm.
Because we hug
That's
people in our community more now. So I'm realizing that this is something that normals do, and that I guess one of my strengths is assimilating because I hate myself so much.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to assimilate. So thanks, Kaylee, for that. Okay, so Kaylee, get your brain rolling on what's making you uncomfortable while I go, because I know
Mhm.
you won't be listening to me anyway.
No.
So I was thinking about sports and that whole realm and what makes me uncomfortable there, which is a lot of things. Starting from when I was in kindergarten and we played that stupid game softball where you hit the red ball with your fists and then you run around the bases as if it's baseball. That we did that in kindergarten, and my kindergarten teacher openly mocked me the whole time, like publicly
Ugh.
humiliating me to the class.
No!
Was making fun of the way that I ran and that my belly was fat, and then that turned into like, oh, I'm so poor that I don't have shoes that fit, and my mom never contributes to the PTA or whatever. Like it was this roast as I'm struggling to run the bases because my knees keep knocking together and I'm totally uncoordinated. So my relationship with sports and athletics started off on a bad foot, quite literally, because I'm pigeon-toed and all that. But I was thinking something that makes me super uncomfortable is the consumptions of nuts and seeds. So my dad is a huge baseball fan, and so most of my sports going experiences have been at the baseball stadium. So there you have peanuts in the shell and you have sunflower seeds.
Mm.
And I was thinking about this the other night because I am crippled, paralyzed, but also at the same time furiously always running in heart and mind by anxiety. So I can't sleep at night. I can't do anything functional, but my heart and my mind and my whole nervous system is just racing. You can call it hypervigilance, whatever fuck therapy word you want to throw at it. I'm just telling you that one thing that I've been trying to do, besides like literally carve myself into pieces and put myself in a donut box and send it to all my relatives, is to eat sunflower seeds because it gives me something to do while my mind is going in a million directions. And I realized how disgusted I am at the act of eating sunflower seeds just by myself on my couch in the middle of the night with just my dogs to look at me. Now extrapolate that shit to you're in a stadium of 50,000 people and you are putting things in your mouth, cracking them, probably not even getting the seed because it's impossible, spitting it back into your hand or onto the ground or into the back or into like an empty beer bottle or like a Coke cup or whatever you have at the baseball stadium, and then just leaving that around for your fellow human beings to reckon with, to witness, to be changed by. This is the atrocity of public sports, people. America, we have a problem. All of our great international listeners, I know there's thousands of them. I don't know what you're doing over there, but please tell me you're not spitting sunflower seed shells everywhere for some like poor retired person to clean up after you. I think that's the thing that I hate. I hate it when people act like, okay, I'm going to do whatever I want to do because someone else will clean up after me. That is a mentality that disgusts me. All right, Kaylee, so what's making you uncomfortable?
That was the best rant.
That was really good. And number one, I just want to say, Jay, that's a bummer that kindergarten teacher did that, because that happens to a numerous amount of kids with sports. You just get your first experience being a negative experience, and then they're like, okay, this is not for me, which is
Yeah.
which is a bummer.
And
So
on a serious note, and I'm sure you see
Yeah.
this as a coach, but like I feel like if I had sports growing up, it would have kept me out of a lot of trouble
oh yeah,
and like mental health problems and physical problems. So I really wish I'd had it. I mean, on top of Mrs. Spinelli, and I hope all of her children and grandchildren are listening, and I would spit on her grave wherever she's rotting right now. So this is the ancestor you come from. But I also grew up in a house where the mentality was like, we fled war. So why do you
Yeah.
want me to pay my hard-earned money right now for you to chase a little ball around a field? So it was really like
Yeah.
sports were prohibited for me. But I really wish I'd had it. I think that I could have enjoyed it, and it probably would have been life-changing. I probably would have been like a well-adjusted person if I had played volleyball.
Oh, imagine that. That's crazy.
That would be weird. I wouldn't be friends with you at all, Allura.
No.
It would be
Is
like
that the-
always this positive, like really toned
I
person.
can barely stand Kaylee as it is.
What sport would you, if you did play sports, would you have liked to try to play?
Well, I remember from PE in high school, I really liked volleyball, and I think I liked it because I was good at it. Like, it was
Nice.
the one time in PE where I would get up to serve, and everyone was like, oh, back up,
Oh.
like, she's good. And I was like, yeah, motherfuckers, finally recognize I have some kind of skill or talent. But yeah, so
Nice.
probably volleyball.
Volleyball is fun. It's a lot of fun. What makes me uncomfortable? Well, number one thing that makes me uncomfortable in life is
Us.
conflict. No, not you.
Soulmate.
No, just anytime there's like conflict, I freeze up. I just try to like be peacemaker, make a comment, especially if it's like I pretty much like everybody that I meet, and so if everyone
Yeah.
is two people that I really like, and then if they're like having a little butting head situation in front of me, that makes me uncomfortable.
Okay,
But
so what is the silliest argument that you have inserted yourself into to try and impose peace?
oh, I don't know about if it's silly. It's just the silly part is changing the subject ASAP. Like totally. That's all. I don't know. Like has nothing to relate. It's just I don't even remember. I just try and be like, let's talk about this instead.
You're like, hey
this-
guys, forget about abortion. What do you think about nachos?
No, this literally happened. We were at a conference, and we brought students with us to one of these like sessions, and it was just the most ridiculous thing. They all took like 10-15 minutes just to introduce themselves, and so our students were just like, is this really like happening? Like, what? I thought we were supposed to talk about climate change and being, how to combat it together. And instead they were all talking about like, oh, I just got promoted to this, and this is my like extremely long unnecessary title for work, and this is my research. And so we were all just roasting these people in our group chat, and Kaylee just says, he's been silent this whole time, but then he just like texts us, so like, what do you want to do for dinner? And
I remember that.
we just immediately, I text Jade like separately, and we're like, can we kick him out of the group chat? Like,
He's like sending us sushi menus. He's like, what
yeah.
are those?
And so then I was like, Kaylee, get out of here with your toxic positivity. So that's where the origin of that saying comes from. Because he really does. I've seen it in action. He just completely just changes the subject.
Yeah, I guess that's definitely what makes me feel uncomfortable is when people are getting frustrated and stuff, and it's uncontrollable. And so I try and send a little distraction, be like, "Oh, look at this! Look at this!" So
It didn't work, by the way.
I know, I
You
definitely
spend
know that it
a
didn't work.
lot of time with dogs. You're like, squeaky toy, over here, over here.
Yes.
Toy, over here. Well, that's probably because you grew up in a house where people love each other and express things and are peaceful.
Yeah. So it definitely comes from that. Another thing that maybe not make me uncomfortable, but that gets me riled up is when people, well, related to sports, especially with rugby. I'm in the rugby community. Is we want rugby to grow in the U.S., right? And there's a lot of different opinions, and everyone says they're in it for the growth of rugby and what it does for the youth and all of that stuff. And then when it really comes down to it, it's not really, it's about wins and losses to a lot of people. And so I like to work with people that just, I know how to work with people that just, that's their number one goal. And just don't tell me that you're doing it for the good, the good of sports. When it comes down to making a tough decision, they revert to, well, how is it going to help my team? Not like, how is it going to help rugby in general? And so that gets me riled up, and sometimes I lose sleep about it because I'm just like, oh my gosh. And then especially people are in higher positions than I am in the community world, the rugby community world. So I always say rugby is great. It's kind of like they're similar to Democrats. They always shoot themselves in the foot and stuff. So that makes me be I don't know. That frustrates me a lot. And so, anyways.
Wow, this got political real quick.
Sorry.
What is one thing about rugby, whether the game or the larger community, as you're saying, Keli, that you would want listeners to know?
It's the most inclusive sport in the world. I've played many sports, and the rugby culture is what it attracted me.
My husband was a rugby player as well, and our daughters are getting into it too. So because of that, his friends are former rugby players as well, and they said the same thing. It was very much like a gentleman's game, not to use an antiquated word, but that it was very respectful and collegial in that you would shake hands at the end of the game. And
there's a saying that says soccer is a gentleman's game played by hooligans, and rugby is a hooligan's game played by gentlemen. That's like one of the sayings out there. Yeah.
Oh. We love a reversal. We like it. So, Keli, you mentioned that basketball is your favorite sport. This is airing in March during full-fledged March Madness. So, Allura and I, as non-athletes and definitely not coaches, we want to know, what's the deal with sports? Like, why March Madness? What is it that we're missing?
You don't understand March Madness?
I don't understand it.
Yeah.
I don't understand sports in general.
So the madness happens in March because...
Oh, okay. That's it, everybody. We got it cleared up.
So it's college basketball in the U.S. and during the playoffs, every sport has their own different playoff scenario. In college basketball, you got now it's 68 teams, and you have one loss, you're out. So that's the tournament, and that is what happens in March Madness. And so you have 68 teams, you have favorites, underdogs, and a lot of underdogs end up winning. And so it's madness because you try and predict who's going to win, and it doesn't happen, and so that's the madness. There's so many games happening at the same time, and a lot of upsets are happening that it's madness. So yeah,
Question:
why do people
Why do
care?
people care?
It's a bunch of underage men running around in not tight enough shorts. Like, why am I
Well,
watching?
it's
Yeah.
the work at the
Okay, even if I'm
yeah
not a gambling person, because I know there's
yes.
all brackets and all of that, but like, get us to the essence of why. Like, what
Mhm.
really gets your blood thrumming about these young men running around with the ball?
So
You should say
yeah,
young men again.
so yeah,
Young,
as a
virile men.
former basketball player, where and I was 6 foot at 12 years old, and I thought I was going to be 6'6", but
Humble
I
flex.
stopped at 6 foot. Basketball, yeah,
Oh, so you're a
that's yeah.
loser.
Mhm.
Uh,
How tall's
Tonga,
Tonga?
my brother, is 6'2", 6'2.5", I believe. Yeah, yeah.
Ooh, I bet that hurts every
No, not really.
Christmas.
Mhm.
Who gets to
I'm
put the
afraid of heights
star on the
too.
tree? Oh, it's Tonga.
So,
Because you're so short.
so no, I mean it takes these to play at the Division 1 collegiate level. Those are the top athletes in the country. Um, so and the work that they put into it, it's a job, 5 days a week, all the practices, weightlifting, all of that stuff. And so you do all of that, and then it comes down to this one game when your season is going to be done or not in March Madness. And then it's yeah, I don't know. It's a lot being a player of how much work it. I mean, I never played at that level, but even at the high school level, I know what it takes for those athletes. They spend a lot of time on their craft. So, um, yeah, I don't know. Oh,
That
tons of
seems like a lot of
pressure. There's a
pressure.
lot of pressure. I mean, I get nervous just watching the games because I'm into it a lot. But it's exciting for those underdogs to win, and yeah, it's heartbreaking when it's seniors on the team and they know it's their last game if they lose, and you just see lots of heartbreak and stuff. But I don't know. It's fun to watch, and it's madness.
Seems like a bummer that for most of the players who don't continue on to the NBA or what have you, this is the most exciting time in
Probably
their life when they're
for their
Mhm.
playing
21 years
career,
old.
most definitely. Yeah, there's a small percentage that moves on to a professional league, either in the U.S. or overseas. So
So you like watching people perform where the rest of their life is going to be all downhill from
no,
there? Is that what
it's
you're
not
saying?
that.
Is that what you feel like when you talk to me and Allura?
No.
This is actually a psychology podcast.
No. It's
Very much so.
I mean, hopefully they, sport. The thing about sports is even at the professional level, except for the extreme people, like you're at 30, you're done. Like you're not. You're gonna get worse, right? There's only a few of
Yeah,
the
me too.
cream of the crop that continue on, and those are the ultimate grades. But um, a lot like that's. I mean, what are you going to do with life after 30 if you are able to play? So
Nothing.
hopefully they're figuring out what they're going to do. Not all of them,
They don't.
but I mean, some of them they already know. There's there's a lot of college players. They know they're not going to play at the next level and stuff. So hopefully they have a backup plan.
I hope they got something out of college besides dunking the
Yes,
ball.
yes. So,
Okay, so we had mentioned a little bit about the brackets. one of the things Allura and I wanted to ask you about today is
Yeah.
the betting part of sports, and especially these
Yeah.
fantasy sports leagues. We want to know
What is it?
like what, why, and why is really our question with a lot of these things. But we want to know if you bet, if you gamble, and what does it feel like if you do to be a stereotype? Go ahead.
Yes. I have some history of gambling on sports. I like gambling. When I go to Vegas, I like throwing the dice at the roulette table. Um, no, at the craps table,
Oh,
not
very
the roulette table.
Sinatra.
Sorry, it's been a while. Yes.
Everybody's gonna laugh at
He's a
you that
fake
you made that
gambler.
mistake.
No. But on sports, I guess the why. By the way, I don't gamble like a lot of money. It's more of seeing. It's the yeah.
Let's get Julie back in here and ask her.
So it's the extra level of excitement when you're watching a game, and then it's the I think when you ask the why, it's probably like, oh, I knew that was gonna happen, and you get rewarded with it with money, kind of thing. But it's gambling. It's not like you. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose, and most of the time you lose. So
You can't win.
Literally
so I think
can't
that's
win.
why people casually gamble. The people that gamble, they're professional gamblers. I don't know. It's an easy way to make money and lose money, and then there's people that have gambling problems. So, but I think that's what they're.
Oh, you know my family?
But I think it's like the I knew that was going to happen and I made some money on it kind of thing. Because I've heard this before. It's like gamblers, they always they never like bad gamblers, as in they have a problem. Is when they lose, they're like, man, I should have done this, and then they win, they say, oh, I should have done this to make even more money. They're never like, oh yeah. So it can be, yeah.
Oh,
Yes.
so they're never
like,
happy.
oh, I should have
Maybe
parlayed
I'm
that
a
with this
gambler.
and made even more money, kind of thing. So yeah, but the fantasy leagues is a kind of similar thing. Fantasy football is the most popular. So you draft a team of players with a group of, I don't know, 10 people, 12, 8 people. And in that draft, it's showing your knowledge that you're going to pick these players that are going to score enough points for you throughout the season. So I think it's more of like, oh, I know more than other people kind of competition. I think that's where it comes down to.
But it's just playing pretend.
Usually there's like, yeah, you could do pretend leagues, or people throw in a pot of, you can throw in a buy-in of $50 and somebody manages it, and then whoever gets first, second, third gets money or something. That's what I do. I'm in a league of $50 at the beginning of the season, and then if you win, you get like $500. So that's the fantasy football league that I'm currently in.
Sounds intoxicating.
I have so many questions and so little
Because you don't
at
care.
the same time.
But there's fantasy like everything now. There's fantasy basketball, fantasy baseball, all of that stuff.
Yes.
I just don't know what those. I haven't played those personally. So
Yeah, I have fantasy relationships. Allura, I know that Allura, you're a gambler of the heart, I know, and a feeling.
Oh.
But do you gamble? This is something I don't know about you yet.
No, I actually hate gambling.
Mm-hmm. Why?
I just see no point in it.
Mm-hmm. because of
Maybe that's why I just have no interest in the, like, people have explained like the fantasy leagues to me, and I've tried to ingest what they're saying to me, and it's just impossible. I like tune out because it's just, like I hate going to casinos.
Mhm.
I hate like placing like small bets with like no money because I'm just like, just tell me the answer,
Tell me the
Yeah.
I'll
answer.
just like wait for the result.
Cut all the shit. Tell me the answer. But ooh, I do love a casino buffet though. That's how you know you're getting your money's worth, is if you just spend that money at the buffet.
Yeah, the buffets don't even do it for me. I hate it. I hate all of it.
Buffets are good.
That was the most quiet, shame-filled statement ever on this podcast. Buffets are good. I think gambling for me, this potentiality and almost inevitability of loss is very triggering for me as a poor kid. It makes me very anxious. And like I joked before, but it's serious, like I have a lot of gambling addicts in my family, and I've seen the havoc that it wreaks on people. So it's hard to see it as fun when I see the tarnish of what happens when it's at an extreme level, which is thousands and thousands of dollars in. But it made me stronger because everyone I knew was out gambling, and I had to figure out how to feed myself. Well, so that's fun.
Hey, can I go back on something you mentioned about?
No.
I forgot to mention something like a story about why rugby versus other sports. No,
Okay,
no.
buckle up,
It's just
everyone.
this is for the two of you. Like, I think the big question is like, why sports, right? What it is, and I think at a lot of different levels, there's a lot of negative stuff that comes out of sports, like especially overseas in the soccer fans. I mean, we've seen scenes of fires and all of that stuff, and people and
Or
and
TBIs.
so I like in the U.S. I this was what, probably 5 years ago. So I coach rugby, and there's some of them that play high school football. And so I went to go support them, and it was like two high schools. And I knew parents on both sides, right? So I went to one side during one half, and then I just was trying to walk over to the other side for the other team. And security was telling me I'm not allowed. I was like, well, how come I'm not allowed? It's like, you can't go back and forth. It's like, that is why. I know people on both sides. I want to say hi. And so it really made me sad to be like, how come I'm here to support both teams because I know players on both sides. How come I can't go say hi on both sides? I ended up finding my way on the other side so I can. But that really like showed me like, and that's American football high school age, right? And if you're not, and I know why they don't allow it, because there's been violence. They don't want fights. And so when it comes to that level, like that's where I think people take sports a little too serious, where you're going to fight about something, right? You could be in disagreement and stuff. And so that's why I like rugby, because the two teams are on the same sideline. That's like part of the regulations. And everyone that's cheering is on the other sideline. And so, and then like, so maybe I should have said this on my rant part, but just seeing parents get really too excited supporting their 10-year-old, in a 10-year-old regular season game, and they're just yelling at a referee. And it's like, hold on here. There's not much money on the line in this game like in the pro sports. And so I think that can create a bad experience for a lot of potential athletes, and stuff.
Yeah, it's like, what are you
Yeah,
teaching your kids
and
about what
it's
this sport
really
is
them.
about?
They obviously, the parents are missing something in their life that they need their kid to do well, or their kid's team to win, right? And it's just that those are the sad parts. And so in rugby, for the most part that I've seen, it's that's put in check for most of the time. Obviously, there's human beings that do that in rugby, but that's another reason why I like rugby. We're supposed to do that, and it's part of the rugby culture. But in sports in general, that's the bad name that I don't like it, because sports does give supposed to give a safe space for some the players and the community, and you're supposed to have fun, and it does teach when you do lose, like life can go on, like that is the easiest way to teach, especially youth, like what do you do in a loss. And so that's why as a coach, if a coach wins a lot and stuff, I'm like, that's great, but can you coach a team that has a losing season? Like, can you? And if you can, you're a good coach, you know anyways. So that, I don't know why that was brought, I forgot to mention that in my thing.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great point, especially with kids at home and they're trying out various different sports to find their fit. We're trying to teach them, you don't
Yeah.
quit on a bad day, because in sports, you're always going to have bad days. There's always going to be challenges. If you really think you want to quit this sport to try something else, you have to quit on a good day when everything went your way, when you got the win, and really determine, what is the experience? What
Yeah.
are the values here that are not gelling with you? And it is a bummer when that divisiveness persists, especially for
Oh,
kids teams. I think it's ridiculous. I've been to some kids soccer games recently, and whoa, it's just out of control the way people act, and things are thrown out of perspective, and you just want to karate chop them to the throat when they're yelling at the ref or
yeah.
yelling at kids. Like, oh my god, like, who are you? Come on. But because I think the most devastating thing about the division and the violence, as you mentioned, is that people get drawn to sports because
Yeah.
they want to be part of something, like be part of a team. And even the fans, they just want to be part of something. I remember because my dad is a
Hmm.
lifelong Angels fan. He was a junior Angel when the franchise started, and everybody knows that the Angels are a loser ass team. But in 2001, we went to the World Series, and my dad and I were fortunate enough to go to some of the playoff games, not the
Nice.
World Series, but the playoff games leading up to it. And I swear, I was 19 at the time, so I wasn't allowed to legally drink, but I felt
Hmm.
so drunk that whole playoff season because of just the sheer energy and love shared between fans. Just like hugging strangers and cheering and singing and dancing with everyone, and just feeling like you're in something together. It was just almost like a spiritual experience to feel like you're part of something. And I think, especially here, we're divided in so many ways, and sports can give you that outlet to feel like you're unified with a group of people,
Yeah.
for at least for a little bit. So it's too bad when it goes back
No,
around
no,
the other way,
definitely. So one of my favorite sports memories was as a spectator. 2002, I went to the Winter Olympics in Salt Lake with my dad, and we got to see the women's two-person bobsled. That was the first time women's was what we call it, one of the categories, or I forget what they, one of the events. Uh, and we were at the finish line, and the U.S. Was going last. If they get the fastest, we win. They had a good chance. And like you said, Jade, we're cold. You're bunched up. We're at the finish line, and suddenly, you accidentally bump into somebody because it's crowded, and everyone's like, "Oh, sorry, sorry, sorry." And when they crossed the finish line, and we all looked at the thing, and then they won the gold, and then everyone that you said sorry to, we're all hugging each other, going USA, and all of that
Mm.
stuff. That feeling, it was, we're like, oh, sorry about that, and then suddenly we're all hugging, high fiving everybody that's near us because of that that unifying feeling, and then your team wins, that you're cheering for. It's pretty awesome. So,
That must have been
That's so cool.
a wet
yes.
dream for you as a hugger.
It was cold. It was
Hugging
definitely cold.
I love
that's my
that Cool
favorite
Runnings movie, the Jamaican bobsled. I love it when he's like looking in the mirror and he's like, "I'm a
That won't
badass
take no shit from
motherfucker."
nobody.
I say that to myself.
I love that movie.
Yeah.
Oh,
Allura is a huge fan of bobsledding as well.
It's just so fun.
So, Allura, you and I are not athletes. We're not involved with the sports world. Do you have any like embarrassing stories of physical education or having to play sports at certain times in your life, or of working out even?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I absolutely hated middle school and high school PE. The running the mile like every week, I try to get out of it every single week.
Oh yeah,
Didn't
you had
know
your
what was
period
happening.
every week.
I think I like sprained my thumb or something, and I was like, oh, I can't run, like my thumb's like sprained. Weren't having it. And I was always the last one to finish, Like I sometimes like I would even actually try and I was still like the last, and I'm like, this is so embarrassing. Like I hate it here. Like we all know like who the mile's for, and it's for me because I'm never gonna I was always like finishing at 12, 13 minutes, like it was the worst. I also hated when like students had to pick teams. I was always the last one to get picked for obvious reasons, I was like the girl like, a ball, just like shooting past me. Didn't even try to catch it. I actually moved out of the way for others. It was like I'm allergic to it. I just hated it. I no longer go to gyms because not like I went previously, but I did hold a membership for a while. But I just hate people just watching me, even though they're probably not, but
they are.
They are. I just hate all the things. So I work out at home, sure, in quotation marks. I've just never, I hate it.
Did you ever play on a team sport? Like when you were little?
Kaylee,
no,
does
I didn't
it look
know if
like
you
I
were
ever played on a team sport?
Not accidentally. Like maybe your mom signs you up for like a...
No, so actually this is really funny. She signed me up for gymnastics this one year, and they like did this test. Like I was like in it. I was terrible, by the way. And like the people that were working there came up and was like, oh, like have everyone do like what is it? What are you like this?
Somersault?
What is that called? I don't know. Anyway, and I couldn't do it, obviously. Yeah. And so then they like moved me to like 2 grades below where I was. So I was with younger kids because I wasn't able to do the cartwheel. That's what it was, a cartwheel. And I was terrible at it. That also was the same thing that happened to me at like they gave me swimming lessons. They held me back one year, and so I was like the oldest one in the class, and everyone made fun of me. So I don't like sports or anything with physical activity for the most part because I was just always held back and I was always terrible at them.
But you're so hyper accomplished in everything else. You can just say fuck sports.
Yeah. Yeah, those were my embarrassing stories.
I tried to do a swim test once when I was a kid because my dad works out at this huge club. He actually lives there now. It just has tennis courts, and athletes from all over the world go there to train. It's this huge sports complex. So I tried to do a swim test to be like pool safe when I was a kid, and I could never pass because they thought that my arms looked awkward going through the water. So it wasn't just that my swimming ability, it was just my body is fucked up. So That's why I never try at anything, because I will fail. But I agree with you, Allura, about gyms. Nobody was watching me, but I would watch people watch others, and it made me so uncomfortable that I just couldn't get over. I feel like I'm one of those people that I'm hypersensitive to everybody's facial expressions and mannerisms because I'm used to being around volatile people. So I'm like always reading for an eruption. And it just became sensory overload to be at a gym. So I also work out at home and I use these videos, but then the videos annoy me because it's all of this, like, you know, how Keli talks toxic positivity is like, oh, you're your best self and look at you, you're doing great. I'm like, you don't
like
fucking
positive
know.
affirmations.
Yeah, they don't know that shit. They're not watching me. This is a pre-recorded video. So don't feed me some horse shit about how I'm doing great because I'm struggling and sweating. And it's,
you know, this one time, actually it's multiple times. I do this all the time. I will turn on like a exercise video and I'll just do the warm up and I'm like exhausted. Like I'm like just hyperventilating, like heavy breathing, terrible. And I'm like, all right, that was it. And it was just the warm up and it makes me feel really good about myself. So then I just cry in the shower afterwards.
as a toxic positive person would say, hey, you did something today, Allura.
Right.
You know, I tried
it's
to
just like really defeating when you like pull out like the whole like yoga mat and like in your like little like workout outfit and then you do like 6 minutes and then you just have to roll the yoga mat up. It's like the worst.
It's like the 80s when people would get their aerobics outfit on and then smoke a cigarette and like drink a mimosa or something. I tried to do a dance video the other day and I think something in my brain snapped. Like something about the choreography and the coordination it required. I think I had like a mini stroke. Like the two hemispheres collided.
Right.
Thanks for laughing. I've always wanted to be a
Something
dancer.
else that I like. It's not that I'm anti-sports. It's just that like I just don't get it. So like, you know, I used to work for the same program and it deals with our Pacific Islander community. Sports is such a huge thing, you know, it's like their meal ticket, you know, and that's what our community is best known for, especially in like football and like rugby is like being super famous NFL players. But it's so like crushing to our students who like, especially in high school, like that don't get a scholarship. So then they're so embarrassed, they're so crushed, like they don't know what to do next because their whole life they got family pressure and community pressure to do well, and then they don't. You know, so I'm just kind of conflicted with the sports aspect in that way, and like we're treating our PI like, you know, people and also other communities of color as just bodies that can do sports and entertain us in that way, but they're intellectual and they have other things, but they see only that as their only path, you know?
Yeah. Colonization has rewritten this history so that it erases the thousands of years of intellectual innovation that communities of color have made so that they only see the bodies. It's almost like another form of, some would argue, enslavement in a lot of ways. Like you train your body, you use your body to make money for us, and you will be a spectacle that we watch and that we applaud for and that we ridicule and criticize as well. So that's a very scary embedded.
Yeah, no, this is getting some. Those are definitely everything that you said, Alora, is spot on because I've had a lot of rugby players that have transferred from the sport of football, and I meet them, and I could see that they're bummed out because they were told if you ate this way, if you work out this certain amount of time, if you do this and you do that, you're going to be, and everyone's telling them since like they're 10 years old, right? And then after they graduate high school, if they don't get that scholarship, they feel like a failure. And it's like, that's heartbreaking for sure. And you got coaches, family putting that pressure. If you don't work hard enough, you're not going to get this. But and it's a shame that you know um, the youth have to go through that. And then if that sport was that one sport, there's a lot of people that is one sport was your whole life, your whole youth, and then you hit 18 and you graduate high school, you're lost. You're literally lost. And so, at the college level, when I coach, it's giving them that athletic outlet without the expectations of this is just fun. This is that. I mean, that's how I played rugby. I didn't play rugby until I went to college. I was an athlete in high school, but I didn't make it to the next level. And rugby was there as a club, and the time commitment was less. It's just 2 practices a week, and we got a game on Saturday. Wow, that's easy instead of 5 days a week and all that stuff. So, but yeah, it's heartbreaking when I've met some players that they're like, this is what I was told to do, and I did it, and I'm not getting what you told me I was going to get. I know a lot of some coaches, they like promise scholarships that you're going to get a scholarship. You're like, I never promised that ever. I know, unless I can guarantee it, but I just tell them you might have a good chance and stuff. But that it's a crime, you know. So
I think that requires such a big shift for the whole community and culture too, because I recently went to see Lisa Upereza speak on her book Gridiron Capital, and her father was a Hall of Fame recognized American football player, and she has a doctorate and has published a book, and she made a half-hearted joke of like, well, my dad still asked me, why didn't
yeah,
you go into sports? So she could get all of these intellectual accolades and accomplishments, and he would still be asking, why didn't you go that carved path for us, which was athletics? Why didn't you use your body instead of your mind? So I think to make this cultural shift for communities of color and Pacific Islanders in specific, it takes the whole community to ask other questions, like
yeah.
set other expectations, show them that it is possible to do other things. It reminds me of there's a scene in
I
Jordan
don't know
Peele's
that.
Get Out where they're at the party, and the white girl has a black boyfriend, and he's carrying his camera, and he's like this really artsy photographer and super smart and intellectual, and they keep asking him like, so you play basketball? Oh no, he's a football. Like, so what do you, oh my gosh, your biceps, they're so strong, and like, oh, your legs are so long, you must be an athlete. And he's like,
Yeah,
no, I take pictures. So it really takes like a real cultural shift to be able to talk about it and think about it in those different ways, to see people of color as a mind, not just a body. And I think that takes a lot of
yeah.
work
And
collectively.
another thing that really upsets me is when, especially at the high school level, in some different sports, that high school coaches, they use those bodies for the wins, right? And then I have, you know, um, worked with some students that they were superstars on their teams, football, right? And then they didn't graduate high school from that high school, you know? And that's like,
Mm.
this person literally made this high school money. People are coming to show, to buying the tickets to go see this game. And then it's like, what'd you do for that player? And
Yeah.
you just use them up
Mhm.
at age 16, 17, 18. It's like, oh, it's sickening, Um, it's
Yeah, they're not investing in the
yes,
young people as people with for the
and
long
and
run,
it
their
comes down
future.
to the culture of wins and losses, and that's where, I mean, that goes down to the 10-year-old's parent going crazy, like on the sideline yelling at the ref. It's like, what is this? Um, I always, winning is like the cherry on top. All the other stuff underneath is more important. Team bonding, all that stuff. But like, you, it's that is what is toxic in our society. It's the emphasis of the win is just a little bit too much. That on the other side, you know, if you lose, that means you totally fail. It's like, no, you have a mind, you have all this and all that stuff. Yeah, I don't know. This reminds me of something. I was a sore loser when I was young. I played on some traveling basketball teams and stuff, and every time when we would lose, I couldn't handle it. I would cry, and all of this stuff. And then my dad, he ended up actually writing a song about this, but um, he told me, like, I think he got tired of me just like crying, and he goes, "Well, did you try your best?" And I said, "Yes, I did." And he's like, "Then you have to learn to live with this if you try your best." And then he told me, and the song that he wrote is the statement that he said was, he goes, "There is always somebody better." So what he was trying to tell me was, like, sometimes you can work the hardest, you've done everything right, but there's always somebody better in the world. And so that made me think, like, oh, it's okay to lose because there is going to be somebody that's always better than me at this sport. So the chorus is like, there's always somebody better, there's always somebody wiser, there's always somebody smarter, there's always somebody. And that was his way of parenting, was writing songs as childhood lessons. So anyways, they remind me of that.
Well, that that chorus is what I hear in my head every time I look at Allura. So but I think your point about like this culture of wins and losses, I think that's one of the other things that really puts me off to sports is the
Hmm.
statistics of it all, the numbers of it. And you're just looking at these stats of these people, but I am the type of person who wants to hear the story of your dad writing you a song to get through the losses. Like, I
Yeah.
much prefer the stories
Yeah.
behind the people. Maybe that's my emphasis more on the humanity than the statistics, but I think this numbers culture is very dehumanizing to me.
Mm-hmm.
But it's nice that your dad
Yeah.
wrote you a song. Um, I, I maybe this is the origin story of your toxic positivity.
Oh, it
Um,
most definitely is.
yeah, which is the last point that Allura and I wanted to cover with you today. Allura, what do we want to figure out about Keely's toxic positivity, this wave of happiness and hope that we are submerged under all the time?
Yeah, I like why and like how, you know? I'm not everyone gets a dad who writes songs about their son's hardship. So I don't know what that's like, but I would assume it has a
Yeah.
big effect on their philosophy growing up.
Yeah.
Kaylee, I know you don't think your positivity is toxic.
Clearly.
But how did it develop, your
uh,
positivity?
why do I have
And
hope?
why do
Well,
you
it
have
comes
hope?
from comes from well, number one, I think being born to the parents that I, had. Um, that's definitely the root of it. Um, and I would argue that uh, I know the word toxic is pretty strong. Um,
No, that's
I think
probably
it's
wrong.
just right.
Yeah.
well, it has a negative connotation to it, but I feel I do understand that some people can be um, positive in not in it. I would say I'm positive in a genuine way, where some people are pretending to
And it's really
be
annoying.
positive, trying to be positive, and so that's where. But where I get that from, to go back to your question, is my parents being being positive a lot, and then expecting me to be like my dad. He's basically, that story I just shared about, there's always somebody better. There's a the more positive way to take a loss. You could be frustrated, you could still feel sad, you could still feel all the human feelings. It's just, are you going to yell at people? Are you going to punch somebody when you're angry? Are you going to do this? Like, what are the what are the ways that you deal with those type of emotions that can lead to negative outcomes? And so that's where I think I got it from. My mom hugs everybody. My dad hugs everybody. So that's where my hugging comes from. And I know it makes some people feel uncomfortable. But I grew up with it. And so it wasn't until like, I think the first time I spent the night at a friend's house, and I'm like, oh, I thought everybody had parents like mine. And then I was like, oh, I thought the whole world was like that. And then the older I get, the more and more I'm reminded, oh my gosh, I'm so lucky, you know. So, um, but so, anyways, why do I have hope? I don't know. It's just I look at a glass half full, I guess, versus half empty, right? I guess.
Oh my god, I almost barfed in my mouth.
I know, it's so nauseating.
Okay.
We're going to be done.
So here is the ironic twist to the lovely story that you just told, Kaylee, because if you attribute your hope and positivity and general overall mental health and confidence to your parents, then from the moment I was conceived,
Yes,
I was fucked.
so-
Like,
Yeah,
there was no
literally, yeah.
chance for me, because if it depends on the
So-
parents, forget it.
I'm just answering the
Thanks.
question, where did it come from? That's where I think it came from. And then that, it could be with people that hopefully people get surrounded by people that might be, able to look at life a certain way. I don't know. The more you surround yourself with people with that type of thinking, I don't know. Yes.
I have a follow-up question. How many songs did your dad write for you in your childhood struggles?
I remember
Oh
2.
my God.
So the one was There Was Always Somebody Better. And then the other one was
The other one about masturbation?
definitely not. The other one was the chorus was It's Okay to Be Yourself. So
Oh, God. We're living in like a Disney movie.
I know. Did the animals
squirrels,
sing to you
rabbits,
too,
and all,
Kaylee?
yes. So
Well, this has been upsetting.
Genuinely.
oh
We're
No.
lost causes, Allura.
no, you're not
Yeah.
lost causes. You two do so much for the community, and it's awesome to work with you two. I feel lucky to be with you two, working and all that stuff. So you're not lost causes.
All right,
I
Allura.
think
we gotta wrap this
I
up.
made you guys uncomfortable. Is this the podcast? Did I just make you guys
Yeah,
feel
very much
uncomfortable?
so.
Yes.
I
Mission
love you both.
accomplished.
Yes, I guess we can.
Ew.
Disgusting. Well, that's all we have for you today.
I hope this will be your.
Anyway, I don't have any, but I just hope you guys do. Please follow us on our Instagram at TMMU Podcast. Join our uncomfortable community. Do all the things, and until next time, make good choices.
I love you.
Bye.
Bye. Ew.